Welcome back to Watching Business Incorporated on Channels Television. We head to the markets now with Will Ibong. Will, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Today is the D-Day.
Yes.
The U.S. Fed is just a couple of hours away.
Couple of hours. I see you're wearing orange, so I think the Fed will definitely do something. Amber. This is amber.
I don't think the Fed sees me. Even if the NGX sees me,
the Fed doesn't.
I doubt. Yeah. So I mean, we're safe.
Okay, we're safe.
Yes, well, you can tell Mr. Rwani that.
Oh, definitely.
Safe.
I'm sure he'll be keeping an eye on you. But I know that the U.S. Fed, when they make that decision, is going to have an impact on Nigeria's economy as well, because mostly our debt is denominated in the dollar, and that will see an easing in terms of the debt repayment that we have to do, and we'll see if Nigeria will be able to make the most of it. So probably maybe cut the foreign debt and see how we can, grow
but by how
our
many
production, our manufacturing sector.
Don't forget that we just took $900 million. We are aiming for $2 billion. The analyst I spoke to then said that $900 million is going to cost the federal government about $1.5 billion in 5 years to pay that back. So I mean, all of that. If they cut the rates today, I don't know if we still have a lot in debt servicing.
But we just hope that the government sees this as an opportunity to say maybe slow down and maybe rethink the strategy of how they can grow the economy.
We'll see.
So let's look at how markets performed at intraday. Major equities in Africa were mostly positive. We see Nigeria's NGX regaining the 98,000 level at intraday. We hope that sustained at the close of business. It rose by 0.39%. And we see South Africa's GSE in the red, more than 0.5%, down 0.59%. But let's look at Egypt's EGX and see how the day. But for the moves at the NGX, we're seeing the buy interest in O&O and Access Holdings. Hopefully that's a rebound for that index, for that stock price. And we're also seeing profit-taking in Flour Mills and Evian Holdings. Let's look at the EGX 30 and see how they performed. They were up at intraday 0.41%. 30,000 level and counting, and the Egyptian exchange has been strongly outperforming themselves these days. So we'll see how they go forward. Kenya's stock market, we see them down Tuesday's trading session to close 0.69% down. Let's look at other markets now, the unlisted equities markets, and see what's going on there. Aradel is the thing to look out for, and we have Mrs. Davina Adeni, Executive Director and Chief Operating Officer at Best Wealth Assets and Trust Limited. Good afternoon, ma'am. It's good to have you in the program. We see that Aradel, ma'am, can you hear me? Are you there?
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Great.
Good afternoon.
Fantastic. So we see that Aradel Holdings is preparing to list on the NGX. It's upon us now. We can't run away from it, staring us in the face. And the oil and gas company, the oil company, has notified shareholders and the NASD of their intention to effect the redenomination and stock split on the ordinary shares. Aradel's outstanding shares currently stand at over 270 million units and at 10 naira each. The share price closed yesterday, that's Tuesday, at over 9,700 naira. Mrs. Adeni, can you tell us this Aradel's nominal value, how is it expected to change from 10 naira to 50 kobo? Can you walk us through the process, the redenomination and stock split process, and how will this exist and how will existing shareholders be affected by this change?
Thank you very much, Will. Basically, what investors who already had a position with Aradel should be looking up to now, because it's like a change in the value and also the change in price of the stock based on the requirements for listing on the NGX. We all know that in the coming days there will be a shift, a transfer of the listing from the NASD for Aradel to listing on the NGX. So what this will mean automatically is that every investor who has shares in NASD with Aradel will expect an automatic, change in the quantity and the price, because the listing requirement for NGX is 50 kobo nominal par value, while that of the listing as it was on the NASD was at the 10 naira nominal value today. So with the deadline set up for today, every investor who is on board today will expect from tomorrow the value and the quantity of their shares will change. So for example, if you're an investor, you have like 20 units, so automatically you're going to have, a times 20 of the units that you have in volume. So 20 units times 20 will give you about 400.
Okay,
Okay?
so,
So,
okay.
but the value, you have the value divided by 20. Did you get me right, Will?
Okay, so that's
So
what.
for the price 20, while the volume will be multiplied by 20. So, and today is the benchmark. After today, there will be a change, and all this in preparation for fulfilling the requirement for listing on the NGX.
Okay, so definitely we look out to Aradel on the NGX, on that playground where everybody would be keeping an eye on them. But we're hearing news that Flour Mills Nigeria is planning to delist from the NGX. How true is that? And how is that impacting on Flour Mills right now and shareholders? What sentiments?
Well, could you repeat that, please?
I said
Could you
Flour
repeat?
Mills, we're hearing reports, it's not been confirmed yet, but we're hearing reports that Flour Mills is planning to delist from the NGX, to consolidate and relist on the NGX because of a merger between Flour Mills and Honeywell. Is that true? And how is that impacting sentiments in the market?
Well, when the listing takes off on the NGX, it will be expected that investors will be looking at comparing the new rates when it would have been adjusted to the rates of companies in the similar sector. Let's look at Seplat, for example. Seplat, as at now, is in the same category with Aradel, and they're
Excuse
already
me,
listed on the
did
NGX.
you hear
And
the
we all know
question?
that Seplat.
Hello, ma'am, did you hear my question? I'm talking about Flour Mills right now. We're getting reports that they want to delist from the NGX and have a merger, go into a merger with Honeywell and consolidate and relist. Is that news true? These are reports we're hearing. It's not been confirmed, but I just want to know if it's true and what impact is it having on investors' sentiments?
So while the stocks split automatically, like we all know, would bring down the rate as at today. Today, we have Aradel being listed at about 9,800 naira per unit. So when it will have been adjusted, it will come down to about 400. And that will mean that there's a lot of space for growth. Okay? So because if we compare 400 when it is adjusted at the rate of about 400 plus, you
I think we've having some
because
technical
that
issues
is
with
right now listed at about 3,050 naira. So that would mean that investors will be looking up to a kind of appreciation, price appreciation in the price. We know that if you look at the rates, dividend payment rate, earning per share of Aradel is really, really robust. So investors are looking at the growth of their price when they will have been listed on NGX to begin to kind of meet up with the current price of Steplat, which is about 3,370 naira as at today.
Thank you
Because
so much.
Aradel is in the same category, upstream, downstream sector of the economy.
Oh, thank you so much, Mrs. Davina Adeni, Chief Executive Officer, Bestworth Assets and Trust Limited, for sharing those insights with us. So I know we didn't get to talk about Flour Mills, as I hope you have probably technical issues. You couldn't hear me properly. So we'll just be moving on. Thank you so much for your perspective on Business Incorporated. So move on now to other major markets in the Middle East, we see the trading were mixed at intraday. Abu Dhabi down at intraday. We see Abu Dhabi down at intraday 0.19%. Dubai also down 0.24%. Now looking at other markets within the region, we see Saudi and Qatari indexes doing so well. We see the Saudi market 0.24%, 0.5% up, and Qatari index 0.01% up. Now let's look at the futures markets in the US, which rose slightly today as investors are anticipating the long-awaited rate cut from the Federal Reserve, and this is following years of aggressive hikes aimed at controlling inflation. Futures tied to the Dow Jones Industrial Average, you see it up 0.14%. See similar margin for the S&P 500, and the NASDAQ futures is ticked up 0.17%. And the Fed, which we know is expected to announce its latest policy decision at 2 p.m. Eastern Time, and that's about 6 p.m. GMT, that's the Greenwich Mean Time, and 7 p.m. West African Time. While traders are certain the rates will drop, they are split on how big the cuts will be, and we have the CME Group's Fed Watch tool showing that a 65% chance of a 50 basis points cut, with 35% betting on a smaller 25 basis points reduction. Now let's see markets in Asia now. They closed today mostly higher, with Australia's S&P extending gains now, but we see other markets, investors are awaiting the Fed reserves, as in the US, they're waiting their rate decision, and this is also impacting the markets in that region. They're also going to be analyzing Japan's trade data for August. Japan's Nikkei 225, we see it rose and closed at 0.49%, that's 6,000 points. We see the Kospi, which is still closed in South Korea, 0.13%. And we see the Hang Seng closed today as well for 1.37% up closed yesterday's trading session there. We see mainland China's Shanghai ticking up. If you look at the markets there, other markets in that region, we see Shanghai up 0.49%, and we see the Nifty 50 in India down 0.21%. So in the markets are reacting to the U.S. Fed's policy decision. Well, they anticipate a rate cut, they expected of that. So we're seeing that investors are, buying. We see that rise for U.S. stocks. We see mixed reactions in Asia. Some are buying, some are selling, some are being cautious.
Well, all of this will be clearer in the next couple of hours.
In the next couple of hours.
And I'm sure by the time we're having this conversation this time tomorrow,
we'll know exactly
where it is.
Yes.
All right, Will, thank you so much.